All right, coaches, appreciate you tuning into my YouTube channel. I'm going to walk through organization this week. So I've walked through how to organize our coaches, a calendar, practice organization, building a call sheet, and then today I'm going to be walking through game management. How do you organize your sideline? What does that look like? With COVID, that caused a lot of adjusting, on my part and a lot of other coaches' parts, as you had to kind of be you had to be intentional with how the sideline needed to look and how to be organized, not just as far as football. So it took a whole other level on that. I think I've got some information, if you would like it, on how we handle our halftime management, some coaching stuff on my website. And I've got a few of those books left if you're interested in that organizational guide, and it goes through some of this as well. Here's the things I'm going to talk about today in game management and trying to organize what your sideline kind of looks like. You have the obvious common ones, but they don't get talked about enough until they happen, and that's how are you going to make adjustments. So you're the offensive coordinator and the head coach, and your defense just gave up a touchdown the first drive and looked horrible. Well, how's that going to look? Or you're on the other side of the ball, you're coaching defense and your offense looks horrible, or specialty, or whatever it's going to be. How does that look? Where do they go to do that? We're blessed with the ability to have a game sideline management. I'm looking at a couple. Excited to get away from the one I was with because it was horrible. But for us, we usually have a meeting point for that group. But also, how is that word getting to me, and who's in charge of that? Who makes those calls? How does that word get to me ultimately? Because ultimately, I'm the one making the call. But I've trusted some of these guys to make some decisions, but I need to know. And then it needs to get spread in case you're sharing players. How does that word get through the whole staff where it's not chaos or the headsets are on the sideline? So those are different things you want to look for as you're going through this. How are you going to make adjustments? Who's making those adjustments? Okay, and then how is that getting to you? How is that getting to the kids? Okay, and so forth. The next one you want to look at is rotations. Okay, rotations for us are important. How are we going to get so-and-so rotated? We're trying to manage reps, especially if you have a two-way kid. How does that look? How many carries do you want so-and-so to have? How are you handling these things? That needs to be discussed beforehand with your coaches and have a kind of an order it goes through. But you need to make sure your coaches feel like they have a role in that, because the last thing you want is for it not to be taken care of or discussed because they're so fearful of making that decision. You just need to kind of go through the process of what that needs to look like. For us, everything runs through the coordinator. So Steve's line coach, we've met as a staff. He's met with his Steve's coordinator. We have a game plan going in, and then he's also got kind of a depth chart working through there that goes to Steve's coordinator that will work its way up. If we're sharing an athlete, then that needs to go both ways. That needs to be something that's dealt with on the front end. How are we going to adjust it within? That's why inter staff meetings are important. Is, hey, we're sharing so-and-so. If we get an injury, he's going to have to play full-time on X side of the ball, so what's our move there? And that needs to be dealt with beforehand and not in the middle of the game. Injury chart. Generally, I'll leave this with my special teams coordinator, and that way, because usually that's the one that's dealing with both sides of the ball, having to work with multiple kids. But, hey, if this kid gets hurt, what special teams is he on? What personnel groups is he on? What this is he on? So what is that limit for us? Who's the next kid in? How do we get that passed along to that kid? That needs to be delegated out. I generally give that to one of my special teams coaches. So-and-so gets hurt, he starts on offense, he plays in nickel defense, and he's on these three special teams. That coach is responsible for communicating that to the coaches and then telling the backups, hey, you're in for so-and-so on all the special teams and on nickel defense and whatever else it is on offense, okay? So it's all explicitly done. Halftime adjustments. I've got a halftime adjustment chart on my website. If you want to go there, you can kind of see some of the things that I do, but we have basically segmented out in times that, hey, we're going to meet as coaching staff, we're going to meet with the personnel groups, we're going to meet as a unit, we're going to come back together, the head coach will address everybody, we'll go out and warm up. And so that needs to be done, and you need to have somebody, we have a guy on a kind of a clock for us. So he'll let me know, move to station 2, move to station. Obviously, you can make in-game adjustments there if you need to at halftime of, hey, take an extra couple minutes here because we're struggling really bad over here. or hey, we're good, we'll come together as a team early. But I like to be segmented out so I'm aware of what's going on. You guys have been like me, you walk 5 miles, it feels like, to some gym, have no idea how much time is left, so you want to make sure you're intentional with that. Pre-game, okay, pre-game is one there's a lot of different ways to do it, just needs to be dealt with where so-and-so's in charge of the kids here, because usually as a head coach, you're dealing with officials, you're dealing with talking to the opposing coach, you're dealing with all the other things that are going on. So somebody's got to be in charge of the different areas inside of your program. Post-game, end of the game, that's one area where I'm adding in this year that I wasn't very good at, but COVID kind of made me, I got to start getting aware of this. And, we bus our kids from kind of the locker room to the game field, so it's caused me to have to figure out, okay, who's in the front of the line shaking hands, who's in the back of the line shaking hands, who's responsible for making sure the kids get in and out of the locker room, who's responsible for making sure the buses are ready, who's got the sign-out list. All of those things need to be done ahead of time. I was horrible at this year. New school, I didn't quite know everything, and so I got better as we went. But that's something that I'm going to be better with next year, something you need to think about, because a lot of times the end of the game can get hazy. COVID and everything else can make things where you can have some issues there, or you can have issues in a normal year. So trying to get everything set up on the front end of that will help a lot as you're trying to get off the field after either a great win you're celebrating, or after maybe not a great experience, but you've got to get them on the bus and get them home. And so making sure you go through all of these things is part of game management. I've got a ton more information available on my website, fbcoachsimpson.com. And don't forget, I've got a couple of those books left. If you would like to order one, you can get one at fbcoachsimpson.com as well. If you haven't done so, I'd appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel. Hopefully putting out stuff each week with a different theme. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you haven't got to watch them all, you can go back and watch, game management, all the way through the different types of organization. Again, highly recommend getting as many things on the front end that you can, and then communicating those out to your coaches. It will save a lot of time, will save a lot of potential issues for you. Thank you for your time.